Thank you, listeners, for joining us for today's Elko Live here on KELK. In time for Tuesday's Elko City News, we're featuring the City Utilities Director today. Dale Johnson is in the house, and Dale's going to give us a complete rundown on some of the cool and amazing infrastructure projects to improve our water and possibly some sewer systems. And I promise by the end of this, you're going to have an education and you're going to be excited about all the infrastructure that's being afforded us thanks to Dale's good work. So welcome to the program, Dale. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I have seen you, and I've talked to the city manager and obviously our elected officials. You're doing just this fantastic job on behalf of the city, because it's really important that we steer whatever resources we have available to us in the best direction that could benefit the most people, obviously with safety and security in mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
So the first thing we want to do is, we know we have some resources, what with ARPA funds, that would be some extra money as the city, made its way through COVID. And that was fortunate in that we had some projects that were, I guess they call them shovel ready. Is that right, Dale?
Yeah, that's right. We had $18 million from the ARPA funds slated for utility projects. So, there was 5 projects that council chose for the ARPA funds to be spent on, and one of them's currently under construction right now.
That's the one near the hospital, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, a lot of people are excited to hear about that, Dale, because, that's caused some road closures, a little bit of an inconvenience at times, but it's always nice to know what the benefit's going to be when we're done.
Yeah, that's the hospital Second Source project, and that's a new 18-inch water main tied into Stitzel Road that'll run all the way down to the hospital. And then part of that project is reconstruction of formerly Powder House Road, which is now Elko Mountain Way, for a portion of it to an intersection where it ties back into Powder House.
And this is an important part of the future footprint of the city, right, Dale? Because we've been looking at Errecart Extension, and as you mentioned, Elko Mountain. Kind of haven't talked about that for a while, but there are still plans for a subdivision there.
Yeah, there are some plans. That's called the Elko Mountain Village project. It's a subdivision that actually came in 2012, and it's just kind of been sitting on the shelf because we couldn't really serve that area with our current water system.
Mm-hmm. And we all know what need we have for more housing, different types of affordable housing. Certainly we have some beautiful homes in the Elko, Spring Creek, and surrounding areas, but it's always nice to have a little more variety for folks just getting started. So this second water source for the hospital, it's not the whole infrastructure needed. We're not doing a water tank or anything, right, Dale?
Not at this time. So the reason this project came about is there's only one water line that runs up to the hospital along the highway there. And if there's any leaks or maintenance that has to be done on that line, it isolates the hospital and they don't have water. So the new line will come from the Stitzel Road area down to the hospital. There's a lot involved in this project because it's kind of like the first phase of a larger scheme project, which is the Elko Mountain project and the Errecart project. So we can use this water line to serve those areas.
Oh, great. So it really does, in a sense, that lays the water foundation for that kind of growth.
Yeah, and right now we have the Elko Mountain booster station / water line tank in plan review at NDEP. So, and that project is a booster station at the Lamoille water tank, which is right up from this Second Source water line. And it'll provide pressure to the next pressure zone, the 5600, because currently the city has 2 pressure zones, the 5200 and the 5400. So this project essentially is going to open up a wider variety of area where we can serve.
And so for people listening who say, Isn't that in the area where we have all those beautiful homes in Elko Summit Estates? But they're separate, right?
They are separate. Elko Summit Estates is not on the city water system. That's a private system there, and some of the homeowners there also have private wells.
Yep, private wells and private septic too.
That's correct.
Yep, so there's often a very broad distinction, and it looks like it's part of the city because it's adjacent to, I think, Sundance was a good example of that at one point, right?
Yeah, Sundance is on city water, but they are on septic systems as well.
Yeah, so just depends on what the city was able to do at the time. So is there anything that you want people to know while this phase 1 of the second source is underway?
Just be cognizant of the area and the construction workers and the equipment there. And I know they're still letting people ride ATVs and four-wheelers and things like that out that way, but just be careful and mindful of them.
They had to bore under the highway, right?
They did. We've actually done a sewer bore that's complete. The contractor will be back next week to do the water portion of that project and bore the water. We figured while we were boring, we may as well get both done with these ARPA funds and kind of save some costs on mob and demob and having contractors come back and forth.
Well, that's why it's great, Dale, to have you and your team and your staff, because you think about things like that on our behalf. That's really great, because we know what happens when we don't have that.
Yeah.
You come back sometimes decades later and say, who was in charge of this? So, of course. Anything else on this particular project you want? I guess how long will it take?
So I bet they will probably be done in 30 to 45 days laying the water line.
So maybe by the end of October?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that point, they would kick off another project, but we won't go there yet because I'd rather touch on the Elko Mountain project a little more and the Errecart project, since they're kind of phases of this one.
Oh, perfect. Your timing is great. Let's do that.
Okay. So again, the Elko Mountain project's the booster station, which is in review right now. So once that's built, that'll open up that 5,600 pressure zone. And it'll also be tied to this second source line. So we kind of thought ahead on this one. We're going to use the line we're putting in now to run the 5,600 pressure zone. So it'll be 54 for the time being until the construction's done on the booster station. And then it'll change the 5,600 pressure, which will allow us to use that same line instead of running two separate lines all the way to Errecart. So it's a big project.
Yeah, that is a big project. And, speaking of, is that something that leads to another water tank at some point, Dale?
It does. There is a water tank slated for Elko Mountain. It's a 2 million gallon tank. It's designed and everything like that, but we don't have the funding to put it in yet. That's why we're going the route of the booster station. The booster station will provide fire flow, 1,000 gallons a minute to the area, and 600 gallons a minute for residential and commercial development. So that'll last a while, probably about 25% build out, and then we would have to start thinking about that tank and get that tank built. And we may or may not let development drive that. So,
yeah, absolutely. There are things in place now that have evolved over the years in which developers can share the cost and do it in an equitable way, but that's also affordable because, it really is a shared arrangement. I mean, we need the housing, but they need the infrastructure.
That's correct. And we do developer agreements with developers to get utilities installed and for their our infrastructure, but their housing developments.
And water tanks are what, $2 million now, or in today's environment? About
a steel tank's about $1.50 a gallon, and there's a new type of tank that they're starting to build now, which is concrete, and that one's about $1.35 a gallon. With the steel tanks, there's a lot of maintenance involved with those over the years because you got to recoat them, clean them all the time. They corrode. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of maintenance to them. The concrete ones, they're saying are going to last longer. You don't really have to paint the insides or anything like that, or the outsides. You can actually bury them. So in the sense of Elko Mountain, it could be laid back in the mountain more so it's not as visible. And you could paint, something on the front so it's
You just read my mind. It's like, wait, but where's our mural space? Okay. Yeah. You could camouflage it in this case.
That's right.
Yeah. That's really cool. So a water tank, though, might be a few years out. We could see this subdivision first.
Yeah, I would say the water tank's a few years out.
Okay. Well, thanks for the update on that. Yeah. And does that bring us to the Errecart?
It does, because
right.
now that we have a booster station or water tank in place, we can get water to Errecart. And that's the next big project. That's a really big project at $10.5 million just for the water line. And that will get water from the hospital all the way to 4th Street, where our 5200 pressure zone is at the south side tank.
That's cool, though. That will open up so much property.
Yep, and it gets an access road back that way. It won't get us all the way to the Errecart Bridge, but we're getting really close.
Right. So how soon, and that is budgeted for, but not gone out. I don't know if specs are done or not gone out to bid.
It's not out to bid. We just got our 90% drawings this week on that, so
that's exciting.
That one's moving along really quick. We should see a probably springtime bid date on that project.
We do need to say that we need to thank our city elected officials, too, because they've been moving along on these projects, Dale. I mean, they have confidence in your department and your staff and this work that's being done, and they know we have the money. It's not something they're sitting on because they know what it means to the community.
Yeah, and it's really going to open up growth for the city.
Yeah, definitely. In an area that's been pretty much... it's just not utilized. It might be used for some recreation or that kind of thing, but it's literally kind of tucked behind the hospital. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is fair to say. And not only does it open up growth for the city, these projects are all going to help with pressure in certain areas, added fire flow and protection like that. So,
because when we're talking about supplying utilities with our utilities director for the city, Dale Johnson, we need water for drinking, for culinary use, obviously, but you need water for flushing. And you mentioned a really important aspect. We have to have water for fire flow to go to those fire hydrants because that's part of our ISO rating too.
That's correct. And, our ISO rating is very important, not only with the fire department, but with insurance companies. And, us having a good storage capacity, which we do. We have 10 existing tanks right now that have about 22.8 million gallons of storage in them. So that is a big deal. And then, having the capacity for the pipes that are big enough to carry the flow of water and the pressure needed for fire situations.
You must have other professionals pretty jealous of you when you go to conferences, right? And they hear those numbers. For a community of our size, we're in really good shape.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And then, the Elko Mountain tank's another added $2 million. And we got other projects we still got to hit on that are going to have additional storage.
Absolutely. So continue on your list, Mr. Johnson.
So our next project, which has already been awarded, is the Cattle Drive Waterline project. That'll open up...
Other end of town.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Section 18's out there, and then we have Komatsu down on that end. And
that's exit 298?
Exit 298.
Okay.
That's correct.
So just to put this in people's minds, Cattle Drive is on Mountain City Highway headed north.
Yep, it's right at the end of the Autumn Color subdivision. So that's where our actual tie-in point is. We'll have to do a bore under Mountain City Highway there. And then we'll run an 18-inch line all the way down to the water line we put in 2016.
Okay, so do you have elevation in your favor there? Because I'm trying to recall if there's much in the way of foothills, or what's the topography?
There's some hills there, so there's a lot of grading that's going to go on with that project as well.
Okay. So Section 18, for anybody trying to recall why that sounds familiar, at one point I think that was considered for the hospital site. A long time. Well, that was before you then, I guess.
Was probably pre-me.
Yeah, okay. But it does connect, as you said.
Yeah, it is a large area of BLM grant land. So, yeah.
But we would obviously be in the process of having that transferred.
That's correct.
For the purpose of residential, commercial growth?
Yes.
Okay. So that's in a direction of the city. I'm not good on directions. So that's going to be west. What is that? Northwest of Elko? Or that's section 18?
Yeah, west. Pretty much to the west.
Just to the west.
Yeah,
okay.
West of Sundance, basically.
Perfect. Okay. Oh boy, that's a pretty area too. When you look out over that, but you could see that developed, and then that, as you said, would connect up to Komatsu and the exit 298 development.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, down there by the Golden Gate truck stop. Coca-Cola's on the water system down there. We got a few customers right now. Coach.
So how soon are we poised for development there, would you say, Dale? I mean, is that next up? Is that in the works?
That is next up for the water line, at least. As soon as Canyon Construction gets partway done with the hospital Second Source, their sister company, Great Basin Engineering, is going to start the dirt work on the Cattle Drive project, and that should be early November, I'm thinking.
Wow, that's great. And these are already at their price point. I mean, we know we have the money and we can go forward.
That's correct.
Wow, great. So how much is Cattle Drive?
Cattle Drive is about $3.2 million.
Okay. So we're just checking off of that $18 million, what you've got left, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that project also has a water tank slated for it that's been designed, but it won't be built until we need that extra storage capacity, but it will be a shovel-ready project, ready to go.
Okay. Do we know if the BLM is at work on conveying that land, or is that a different department?
That is a different department, or it's our development department, but I know there's some talks in the works on that.
Yeah, because that's important for listeners to know, because when you're thinking about the future of the city and carrying on with these plans, it's up to the city council and the elected officials and whoever the mayor is going to be to carry on this work sometimes, Dale. So that's why we want to talk about these things, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and all the departments in the city working together, really.
Absolutely. Because, all the council really has to do is say, these are great plans and we approve. And obviously the council will bring projects to you too. So based on what the needs of the community and the developers are. So,
that's right.
All right. So what's next?
So continue on down at exit 298. We just finished a highway bore down there for the sewer. That project was out to bid this past summer.
We were waiting on that one for a while.
We were. So that kind of extended the sewer down from the Komatsu building and coach area under the highway and back to the Golden Gate truck stop. And then we had a section we had to put in between Coca-Cola and Golden Gate so we could tie all that together. And then the next project that's out to bid currently, we open bids next week, is the exit 298 lift station, which is another big project at $5 million.
Wow, that's exciting though, because that will pave the way for more big projects such as Komatsu, right?
It could, yeah, and any development up along that corridor where the water line runs. So.
And what we understand about Komatsu is they're so happy with their current environment that they expanded.
Yeah, they are doing a pretty large expansion right now.
Yes, and that is a lot of confidence, not just in the mining industry, but the workforce development and the city making good. And I think it's important to note that we haven't deferred taxes on projects. I mean, I know that's a kind of a political thing, Dale. I'm not putting you on the spot, but we've been able to achieve this as a community without making promises and deferring taxes.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
It's been really good for the utilities department, this extra funding for ARPA to get some of these projects out of the way that probably wouldn't have been checked off for another 20 years.
Wow, that's great. And we didn't fritter it away. I mean, we put it to good use. Look at all this that it's going to afford.
Yeah, and this exit 298 project's going to get the sewer from those locations all the way back to the treatment plant. So, yeah, it'll put us in good shape.
All right. So just based on those projections, I mean, the city could grow by 20% or something. I mean, honestly.
Possibly.
Yeah. Over time, because it is managed growth.
Yep. It will take time for developers to develop their, subdivisions and commercial areas. So.
Yep. And it all based on the cost of labor and materials and everything else. So very cool. Did we get to, have you got one more on your list?
I got one more.
I thought so. That's the North Fifth Street. Yay.
Yep,
okay.
That one is in design. It's about 90% as well. It's not slated for funding at this time, but we will have that project designed and ready to go. That one includes a booster station at the top of North 5th Street there where the pavement ends that'll carry the 5,400 pressure zone up to a 2 million gallon water tank for the 5,600 pressure zone that would serve that North 5th Street area.
And that's in the vicinity of the Veterans Cemetery?
It is. It's northwest of there, just directly up from there.
We already have some homes. I mean, quite a few people. You know, if you drive to Snowbowl, you always, at least I do, I look over and go, wow, there's another place. Yeah.
Yep. There's homes there on Rocky Road and right at top of North 5th.
And they would be on their own water, though, right?
The ones in the subdivision there off to the left as you're going up North 5th Street, those are on city water and sewer.
So the city is poised to grow in the North 5th Street area as well.
Yes.
And someone who is listening say, oh, yeah, and then North 5th does kind of connect over in a way to Cattle Drive, correct? I mean, that section of land?
It's a little... Cattle Drive south of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And across the highway, of course.
Exactly, across that. But it's a big area to grow into.
It's a big area.
Cool. But not funded yet, but still shovel ready, or at least on the books, on the plans.
On the books.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of stuff and a lot of growth.
A lot of projects going on right now. Our departments are really busy, so.
Yeah. But it's something that it seems really satisfying.
It is. It's good to see these projects, get kicked off. So.
Yeah, and it will afford the city, again, some security and a source of funding in the future. With all of this growth, we have to pay for things like, additional emergency services, more police and fire, for example.
Yeah, as the city grows, everything expands, and all the departments will have to, follow suit.
Which is nice. Again, the relationship in the city government, everything that we've observed over the years, and we're talking decades, Dale, is that our city works really well together, and you seem to have a common goal.
Yeah, the departments all work well together, so we are lucky to have that.
Right. So if someone's listening and you care about government, local government, because I think it's all local. What they're doing in Washington, D.C. right now, that's sad. They could learn a lot from Elko government, but we just, get things done here. So we have volunteers on the City Planning Commission, and they're appointed, which common citizens can apply to. You don't have to have an engineering background or anything. And those are important people in this process. And then sometimes those people choose to seek elected office, and that's why we have council members and our mayor. So that's all part of it. So hopefully anybody listening will say, well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, that's how it all works.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool system.
So we have other things that we can talk about on your list. So I want to make sure you get to highlight what's important to you.
Well, there's a lot of things our departments do. Our water department's busy almost every day tackling aging infrastructure things like repairing water lines and water main breaks. Same with our sewer system. It's no different. It's as old as the water, and it has its fair share of issues as well. Root intrusions, and then, we deal with that stuff, sewer backups.
The beautiful tree streets. Yeah.
Yeah, they can be a problem at times. We do have some maintenance things we do, like we use some product called Root X to eliminate roots, and Grease X to reduce grease in the sewer system as we're flushing things. And
I bet that the reconstruction of Cedar Street made a nice difference, I guess, in some aspect. I know you were able to replace some water lines. Was that still during your time?
Yep. We replaced all new service lines along there. We abandoned the old 6-inch water main and connected everybody onto the 12-inch main that ran down Cedar.
That's beautiful. Lana Turner and her crew, they did a great job on that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked out well.
That's a nice legacy, yes. Can we talk about this new rule, though? Because I have an older home, and so I'm thinking, what is the new rule about lead and copper?
So it's I don't know, there's been a couple of revisions to the lead and copper rule, but this new one is just came out. This not only the city, but every water system in the country has until October 16th of 2024 to inventory their entire system to find lead pipes. And and it's the service lines that are connected to the main to the home. And we have to know if the entire service line all the way inside the home is lead or what kind of pipe material it is, which is going to be a very costly endeavor, because anything that we can't depict based on age of construction, so pre-1986, I believe it is, they stopped using lead. So we can take that year, and anything built after that, we can say it's not lead.
So you're going to be up in our neighborhood.
Yeah, so anything pre-1986, we got to determine our side of the customer's valve, if it's lead, and then we have to go on customer's property and determine theirs, which could entail digging in people's yards. There are some other avenues we can go and try to educate homeowners and send out test kits where they could test their pipe, and scratch it with a knife and put a test kit on it, and it'll tell you if it's lead or not. And then if they are lead pipes in the underground network, we have to replace them.
Oh boy. Okay. And we know it's for safety's sake, so no argument there. But cost, right, Dale?
Yeah, it's kind of an unfunded mandate.
I was just going to say, okay.
There is a bill out there that they call it the bill. It's a bipartisan infrastructure fund where they are giving states funding to help deal with this issue.
Yeah, this is billions and billions.
It's billions of dollars.
Yeah, with the B. So from what you could extrapolate, and I want people to realize too that I've seen Dale present to the city council during reports, and you often bring these things to the council's attention long before, right?
Yep. Yeah, we've been talking about this one for about a year and a half. When we first brought it up, we engaged with a company called 120 Water to help us inventory the system and go through all the dated records, and that's basically would be a full-time job for people to try to sort through all that and compile this list that we have to provide EPA and the NDEP in a little less than a year now.
Wow.
So will the private property owner also they'll be bearing the cost of replacing pipes on their property?
No, right now it's been put on the cities and municipalities that they have to cover the cost of that.
Okay. And
it's just telling someone the city's going to come on your property and dig up your yard and your landscape, and there could be some heartburn with that.
Oh, well, we'll make sure that we keep talking about the topic, Dale, and obviously, come back on this program, spend some time, right? We'll educate people. Do you anticipate it'll start in spring or?
We have just about a year to get that inventory done. And then
the inventory first.
Yep,
okay.
Once the inventory's done, then they tell you, you have to go investigate all these areas.
Okay.
And then depending on what you find, you have to replace it.
Okay. So we're talking about the next couple
of years.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've got some time.
We got some time. So there's time to get education out to people. And, the more we work with our customers prior to that. So, we could send out the test kits, get some pamphlets out to them, and, they can kind of investigate their own property. So we're not having to dig up their yards and such.
Yeah, we can make it a community project. We can let the Elko Area Chamber know, and then they'll, remind. They have a really good system in place. So anything pre-1986 is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, that's a lot of the tree streets.
That's a lot of the tree streets.
Yeah, Court Street for sure. Yeah. So
most of the downtown area.
Oh, you're right there too. Okay.
A lot of South Side.
That's right. Those are some of the most historic areas. Those were the farms and orchards used to be on the South Side.
Yeah. So it's going to be a big project.
Yeah, it is. So that just means you're going to have to come back on the radio show. I'm just checking out the time here, and Dale Johnson is our utilities director for the city, and I want to make sure of all the list that you have. Is there anything else that we could do in the next couple minutes or so?
We could touch on our pumping capacity and things like that real quick.
Perfect.
And, a little bit about water conservation because that kind of falls in line there. The city currently has 18,000 acre feet annually that we can pump, which is roughly 11,160 gallons per minute, or 5.8 billion gallons a year. Our average annual pumping is currently 2.5 billion gallons a year, so we're about just under half of our annual allotment. The interesting parts of this is our average day demand is about 6.8 million gallons. Our max day demand is about 13.9 million gallons. And most of that's due to the summer months, right?
Running through the sprinkler.
Yeah,
okay.
Our average winter is 2.9 million gallons.
Oh, okay.
So in the summertime, we run 17 wells, nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's a lot of irrigating.
That's a lot of irrigating. In the winter months, we run 3 wells. So
that is a huge difference. Yeah, that's very informative.
So I guess be conscious of your watering and your water schedules, time of days you're watering, and don't let it run down the road if you can help it. Keep it on the irrigatable areas.
Because that's another important consideration we can close on and then put that on our list for the next time we talk, Dale, is that not everybody's on metered water, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that could change in
the coming years. It could change, and it would probably be a mandate again from Division of Water Resources in this case, because they want every drop of water accounted for. So,
I don't know if that's a fair question off the top of your head, but any idea of the percentage of, or about how many folks are metered versus, because I'm one of the folks not metered because it's historic property, old
out
property.
of our 10,500 customers, about 1,300 are metered.
Oh boy, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
When you're metered, you pay for what you use, and when you're not metered, it's a flat rate.
That's correct. And the metered rate, you get 18,000 gallons a month. Anything over that is based on the metered rate.
Oh, okay. So in a sense, I mean, there's...
So in a sense, a lot of people, if they have a smaller home, or even someone with a larger home that doesn't have a lot of landscape, could save money on a meter. So, and we do have a meter grant program where we council funds $20,000 a year, and whatever meters we can put in for that, we can spend that money. And all the homeowner has to do is purchase the meter, and we take care of the rest of the costs.
Wow. And the meter, if I can recall, was about $1,500?
1-inch meter is about $540.
Oh, it's even less. Okay.
Yeah.
Probably thinking of all that installation. So that's a good deal. And again, it affords you if you're conservation minded, then, you can feel pretty good about that. And maybe, as you said, right now we pay $88, I think, for water, sewer, and lights, something like that.
Yeah. Water, sewer, street light, and storm drain fee. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you might find yourself saving a little bit if you conserve your water.
Yeah.
Well, Dale, this has been great. I sure hope that you enjoyed being on the program on behalf of the city of Elko. Dale Johnson is our utilities director, and it's a really good example of how hard our various departments are working behind the scenes to make all this come together.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to our next visit. We appreciate listeners tuning in for Elko Live, as we do on Tuesdays, for an update in Elko City news and issues. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.